Welcome back. This is the payoff. This is when the shop finally comes to life. Today we're moving in equipment and our tools, and we're just going to start enjoying that we do not have a building project anymore. We have a shop that we can do our projects that I like to do in. So please stay tuned as we turn this wonderful shell into a working shop. Days is all based on the original layout and design that I sat down and made, moving my little doll furniture around, paper cutouts, whatever you want to call them. The first place we're starting is right here with this pallet shelving, because it was on the floor and in the way. I just went and bought these pallet rails. I already had the uprights, but the rails I had, the longest ones I had were 10 feet, and this worked out perfect if you had a 14-foot rail, which is the longest that I know of that they make. So we've got all that done. We've got another rack cut for up top, but that'll make full shelving there. I don't know exactly what I'm storing on here yet, except on the top. I plan to store all of the metal that's laying on the floor over here. And what I mean by that is like all of the long 20-foot long, or basically anything longer than 14 feet is going to go up there. If it's shorter than that, probably going to put it on the lower shelf for now until I make up my mind on what else is going to go there, and or come up with some other kind of metal storage. So that's next. I'm going to go ahead and get that stuff up there and get that up off the floor so we can begin moving into the next items. And everywhere I go, I want everything clean at least this first time, because who knows when it'll get cleaned again before it goes up. So. So all the steel's up off the floor now. Everything that's over 14 feet is on the top shelf. Everything under 14 feet is on the bottom shelf. And this is just steel that I had that ended up coming in one of the last loads or as extra parts of other loads where I could slide it underneath cars and stuff. And it came from New Mexico. Nothing I bought here and nothing that I particularly thought was all that important. It's just if I had space, I was going to load it. So that's what that is. We've got the area cleaned out underneath here. We now put our chop saw and my drill press, and all that should fit underneath here really nicely. Probably going to look at putting one other tool under here. Not sure which yet. Maybe the press. And then the front side on over here, I'm thinking this will be where parts or whatever come in. They'll come in, get disassembled, cleaned, media blasted, whatever they need in this area. And then all of our steel, like if we're processing steel, will be in this area. And then behind us over here is where the plasma table is going to be. And that will kind of take up the rest of that area along with some more metal storage for the sheet metal. So I think I'm going to be moving the drill press inboard a little bit just so I can get a little more space between the drill press and the pallet shelving upright. And then that'll still leave room for at least one more tool between them, whether it's storage or something I'm using, I'm not sure. But as you can see, everything's going in here based on a layout, based on an idea of workflow, not just trying to get all my stuff. Part of the process of moving into the shop, I need to get Airlines run all the way around. This is left over from the small shop up the way, but I've got this airline, which I actually bought when I still lived in New Mexico and had intended to use in that shop building. So I've got that here and some pieces to go with it. I've also bought a couple of other kits, and this one's a clutch. You can't even see it. Anyway, I bought it because the tubing is gray, and I kind of liked that color better than the black and the blue. So I have a couple rolls of that. I have different manifolds, and then we have a new tool we're going to be showing you. And then I also had to buy a bunch of fittings and stuff to make everything work. Different connectors and a couple of valves. I also bought an air dryer system that uses the desiccant, however you say it, desiccant packs filled with a few of those to make sure the air is really dry. And then I was approached by a company that sells on Amazon to see if I would be interested in having one of their tubing straighteners. And so I have something similar to this for doing brake lines and fuel lines, that kind of stuff. This one is set to where you can go all the way up from 3/16 of an inch diameter tubing all the way to 1 inch. So we're going to try this today and see if we can't straighten out a whole bunch of this airline. Obviously I said yes when they offered it. It seems to be, like this is my first time messing with it, seems to be pretty beefy. I mean, actually the one I bought years ago really isn't as beefy as this one is. So we're going to mount this in a vise on my welding table and just see how well it does for us. Kind of looking forward to it. And then this one is made by Sexry, CXRCY, that's who sells this one. I don't know who makes it actually, but that's who's reselling it and who sponsored this part of the video. Now this is the only part of it that is sponsored. Everything else was parts out of my pocket. So I do thank you all for all your likes and subscription and any comments you make. That really works with the YouTube algorithm, so I appreciate that. But in the meantime, we're going to give this tool a good working over today. And then one of the things that has been said to me is if I save the packaging, they're going to let me send it to one of you viewers. So while we're working on this all day today, I've kind of tried to come up with an idea on how to share this with you. And we're going to, at the end of the video, we're going to reveal how that'll work out. And one of you will get this. I'll mail it out at my expense, but you're going to get the one I used, which just means it's slightly used because I'm going to do one shot and then pass it on to you. So stay tuned for that. Like I said, at the end of the video, we'll pass on those, how that's going to work out. And in the meantime, I'm going to start breaking down these other boxes, get the tubing out, and we're going to run a bunch of airline around the shop. This one, I bought it because it's gray, but it's a little darker gray than the other. You probably see the color difference. Anyway, it's not actual PEX. It's some knockoff brand. So you got the big roll, and you can kind of use it all as to help you. Put your foot on the end, start straightening it out, and then just roll into it. Pushing that against the floor and pushing down to try and straighten some of that out. Yeah, it's not going to be 100%. And we're going to get enough measured off there that we can get our just over 12-foot piece and get it run through the straightener next. Yeah. Probably can't see the difference. You might be able to see with this. So the PEX, AL PEX, the actual stuff, it takes a little bit of effort to cut it. This, cut right through it real easy, and you can kind of see the difference in the thicknesses there. They use the same fittings, but this stuff is definitely a little bit thinner, a little lighter weight. Let's see, it says 3/4 PEX AL PEX by BAMCAW. Compressed air piping, 200 psi at 73 degrees Fahrenheit, 160 psi at 140. Claims the same pressure rating as the actual PEX, but it also says use only with compressed air, made in China. So it's going to do what we want to do. But and the big roll, I think my first roll came as 100 feet. I think that's right. And this was like 250, and they were the same price, so. Yeah, this is gonna go a lot faster with this now. This stuff is definitely lighter weight. Yeah, we're not trying to do a whole lot with it other than compressed air, but well, nothing other than compressed air. You can run through it. Much quicker to get it straightened out. Now, one of the things I would have liked to have done is wherever the last one of these ends up, which is actually on that wall, I would have liked to basically make an entire loop of the system so that air was kind of coming from two directions. Problem is I have these big steel posts, and Some of them I can get over or behind, and then some of them on the end walls mostly I cannot. So unfortunately, I've got 2 on this wall and 1 on this wall. They're all going to be fed from an overhead line that also drops down to eventually meet my lift, my car lift. And that'll let power and air be right there at the lift. And then the other side of the building is going to have a run that ties into that same overhead line. So we're going to have a line coming down the south wall and an overhead line tying into it. And then all of that's going to go back to the compressor in the compressor room. And from there, I've got to feed air kind of the other direction into the area where my toolboxes are going to be and where my lathe and mill and other tools are going to be, just so I have air in all those portions of the shop. So we're going to finish tying all these together and get it into the compressor room, and then we'll do a second line set to come out the back of the room.
My goal right now is to tie that line over to this line. We got to go around that piece of conduit, but this is one of the posts that I was talking about that I could actually get around this post. Up at the top there's a little bit of daylight, but on this post there is not. So
I got another tool that can help make this job easier as far as getting straight lines vertical on the wall, or if you're running a horizontal tube across the wall, or later on you're hanging pictures in your house, is a laser level. This one has an auto level feature. I bought this with my own money. There's no sponsorship here or anything, but they're fairly inexpensive and they've gotten better and better and better. I reviewed one quite a few years ago and really ended up saying don't buy it. You know, I felt bad because somebody had sent it to me and asked me to review it in hopes that I would say it was great, but it really wasn't. This one has been pretty much flawless. It works great. Came with the tripod. It came with a couple other ways to mount it. Mount it on a wall, all kinds of stuff. So if you were hanging pictures in your house or whatever, there's all kinds of ways you can use this. Now, one of the nice things is I need a horizontal line up there. So there's a horizontal line coming out the bottom here, and it will self-level as long as you're within about 4 degrees, I think it said, and there's a little bubble level over here on the side. But you can set it manually. So what we're going to do, loosen this up, and I need a level line way up there on the wall. All I'm doing is looking way up there. You can see the line on my chest probably, but I'm looking way up there on the wall and getting that line set up with my other lines that are already in existence, or my pipe ends that are already up there. I'll try and show you, but there's no way the camera's going to pick it up. But I've basically got it dead on the fittings that I already have at the top of the lines on the wall I've got. So that gives me a straight horizontal line up there to set that last piece of tubing that we just cut. So right now I'm trying to roll out some of this tubing to get some long lengths to run all the different places in the shop here. And I wanted to go over this tool and why I'm finding it so useful and why I want to share it with you. So it's, let's just talk about it. It's a probably 3/8 or a little thicker piece of aluminum. It's got, I think these are probably composite. They don't feel aluminum, but the wheels are all kind of grooved. You can see here for the tubing to run into. The wheels are grooved for that tubing to roll on them. They have a really nice bearing in there, so it rolls really easy. And then you've got a height adjuster for the thickness of your tubing right here. And then I've been just clamping it in my vise. You could mount this, it's got 3 holes in here. You could mount this to a table or something else to where it held it. You could also do it laying horizontal and then just bolt it down to a table or something. So you can use it either way, I think, with no real issues. At least no issues I can think of. And then, like I said, it's made to go up to 1 inch. It goes just a hair over, like This stuff is basically an inch in diameter. It's loose in here right now. You just adjust the bolt to get it to where it's snug on your tubing. And then you can roll it back and forth, and it's gonna help straighten it out. Now, if it's got a bad kink in it, you're probably not gonna get that out. But if you have a piece, so this PEX AL-PEX is heavy duty enough, if it's laying on the floor and you step on it, you're not liable to deform it. Maybe if you jump up and down on it and you're a couple 100 pounds, you might. I just hit this with a hammer pretty solid, and you can see I've dented it in. And while this tool is not specifically designed just to take that kind of dent out of it, the nice thing is we can set it over here where the tubing is normal depth or normal fit. We can start rolling this through here. And I'm just doing a short piece just to show you what it's like, but just keep turning it a little bit, working it back through there. Pretty quick, we've made this round again. So this is very good for taking care of that kind of deformation of the tubing. I ran over a piece, not quite all the way, but I had squished it pretty good, worse than that hammer had, with my scissor lift here. And it was in the middle of a piece that I just cut that's like 25, 30 feet long. I don't remember, it was for one of these on the wall. And I was able to run it through here. It took me about 2 minutes, and I had it straightened back out to where it was completely usable again. And you could barely even see where they'd gotten it and squished it down. So what it's really helpful for is you've got a tight coil like this, and you can start uncoiling this. And this PEX AL-PEX, because of that aluminum in it, it's made to hold its shape. That's kind of its purpose. It also makes it a much tougher product, but it helps hold its shape. But I can roll this in here, and now I can let's put a little pressure on it. I can put a little bit of pressure on the part that's coiled. And I can take that coil out of it. And we can run it back through the other way. And I'm putting a little slight upward pressure on it so that as it comes out of these rollers, it's straightening it out. You can see we just went from a coil to almost perfectly straight. And you could work it once or twice more and get it even straighter, but typically that's enough. I mean, you use a laser level or just a regular bubble level on the wall, and I'll show you over here. So you can see here, I ran this piece of tubing through that set of wheels about 2 or 3 times to get it straight, and then once I put my T in, I could just use my laser level, get the vertical line, and line the tubing up, and it looks pretty darn straight. You know, is it perfect? Probably not. But it sure takes a lot of the work of trying to get all those curves out of it and the twists out of the tubing. Makes the job a lot easier. So I really just wanted to show you the tool and how you use it for pretty much all your job. And then if you do something where you damage the tubing, as long as you haven't punctured it or anything, you can run it back through there and straighten it back out and get those dents out of it and keep a project going without having to cut and splice in pieces or throw away a big chunk. So that's the tool. That's what I've been using. That's how I've been using it here in the shop, and it works great for me. I just don't have a long-term use for it. So stay tuned to the end, and I'm going to share how you're going to have an opportunity to get that tool shipped to you at your house, and you can do this and straighten out stuff for you. The nice thing is, because it will go all the way down to the smaller tubing sizes, if you're working on a vehicle where you're trying to put new brake lines on or new fuel lines, you're going to be able to use that tool for that too, because it'll do down to 3/16 of an inch and let you straighten a brake line, a big coil of brake line out or a big coil of fuel line out. And so you're going to find multiple uses for it. I just already own one that doesn't go up to the 1 inch, but it does do brake line and fuel line, and I'm very comfortable with using it. So, all right, so after about a day and a half's worth of work. I've got all the Airlines installed. Kind of going to show you around real quick what I did. And then that's my new air compressor. And it doesn't live up there, but that's where it's been stored for the last month and a half, 2 months. We're going to be getting it down. We're going to go over what it is, why I bought that one. And then I'm going to show you, as part of the walk around, I'm going to show you where it's going to go and where it's going to be living from now on. So let's kind of take a look around here. Okay guys, so what I did is I ran 6 places. I've got these vertical lines coming down off of the stuff that's going around the shop and up over the ceiling. And I've got these manifolds. Now I have 3 of the manifolds, I'm sorry, there's 6 total, but there's 3 manifolds that have this air gauge in it. And then the rest of the manifolds just have an air hose fitting coming out where this gauge is rather than on the side. These I liked because I could kind of check the pressure around the shop, and which it should be the same all over the place, but you know, just kind of get an idea if you're losing a lot of pressure across the shop, then maybe I have a leak somewhere too I might need to be looking into. And then this manifold type has a location for 2 air hose fittings on it. We've got 6 down drops right now. I have a 7th line that drops down part way, and that's going to be for air on the 2-post lift that'll eventually go in the shop. And so that'll just have air, and it'll have a manifold screwed into the side of that, or maybe I'll do a hose reel there so it's kind of centrally located in the building. And then under the balcony where my toolbox is going to go, that's going to have 1 fitting in there, and then on the next side of that, underneath the balcony still, there's going to be 2 fittings or manifolds in there so that I can have the air in there with my lathe and mill and all the other tools, so I can blow stuff off and clean things and whatever. So all of that's kind of, that part has still got to go. I've got an initial run in there with a shut-off valve and all that. Over here you can see the same kind of manifold I was using on that side. It goes up to a T. The airline goes over this garage door and down to the one we were just standing at. And it goes across and down to another one over here. Because of these big posts, I couldn't run Airlines across that way. So out of this airline we were standing next to before, it goes all the way up to the ceiling, and there's a T up there that feeds the other 2 I just showed you, and then you can see it starts to go across the ceiling. So as it goes across the ceiling, it runs right next to, you know, a couple feet from that piece of conduit all the way over, and there's a T there just this side of where the garage door supports are, and it comes over, and right at where my scissor lift is, there's a line hanging down off of the ceiling there. And that is for the one I was just talking about that'll be on the 2-post lift. There is a drop back there where the plasma table is going to be. There's another one over here on this side of that pallet racking, just on the other side of that silver post, that are all tied together again into this same main one that comes off the ceiling over here. That goes over all the way back past the shelving and then drops down into the room you can see back there with the light on in it. And that's where the air compressor is going to live in the very near future. So all of that took about 325 feet based on, I'm just estimating based on what I have left of that gray tubing, but about 325 feet to do everything in the shop and get it dropped into that room over there. Once I get the compressor down, we'll kind of walk around that. I'll get it put away, and then we'll start getting that hooked up. I know it's kind of shadowed in here because the light's not great, but what I've done is the line that went across upstairs comes down through the floor, the upstairs floor, in here, comes across, and then it hits a T over here in the corner. One side of the T goes out to the area where my toolboxes are going to be, and to the next room over that's going to be the machine room where the lathe and mill and all that is. The other side of the T comes down. I've got a valve here just to shut it off if I need to, and feeds into, or comes out of, because the inlet side is over here, this set of filters. So there's a water separator and an oil separator, vice versa, and then 2 filters where I was talking I could put that desiccant, whatever, in there. It's got a regulator, and then this lets me know if the stuff needs to be changed in it. Again, I haven't got all this. I've got this side tight. I don't have these tight yet. And then this one has an auto drain on it so that it'll drain out. So the air compressor is going to sit in this room, and it's going to take up most of the room. But it's supposed to be quiet enough that I really probably didn't need to put it in a room, but I've got some other equipment that needs to go in here. So it's going on the wall kind of behind, to my right, almost behind the camera here, and that's going to be like where the heating stuff for the in-floor heat and all that it goes. So it kind of made sense just to have one room that kind of contained it all. There'll also be a small hot water heater in here that feeds that bathroom that's going to be on the other side of that. So it's my utility room, if you will. This is the power that the electrician brought in for the air compressor. We had to bring 100 amps over here. It draws 80 on startup, and it required a 100 amp circuit breaker. So we've got a lot of power coming over here. We're going to run that into our compressor. We're going to run our air out of the compressor into here. All right, so what we have is a 7.5 horse single phase industrial gold brand rotary compressor. It has an attached dryer and it has an aftercooler on the other side. So the air is compressed by the rotary compressor, goes through the aftercooler, into the tank, out of the tank, into the dryer, out of the dryer, into our Airlines system. Hopefully we get good, clean, dry air for our air tools, for my plasma table, especially the plasma cutters do not like water, but also for the times when we want to paint. You know, we can put a small inline filter on the paint gun, but it's nice to start with good, clean, dry air. So that's what all this is. This is the controller. This is where we got to bring the power into, and then it handles all of the motor controls and all kinds of stuff. This thing looks to be pretty well built. It's got lots of insulation around it, which should help keep it nice and quiet. I don't know if you can really see the compressor in there, but it's got spin-on oil filters for separating water as well as the oil change when you do that. It's got, like I said, a 7.5 horse motor, which is right back in here with a big fan on the backside. It's going to eat some electricity, but hopefully we get such good use out of it. And you know, batteries have gotten so much better on our electric tools that air tools and stuff are not something I'm running all the time, but I do need good, clean source of air for the plasma table and plasma cutters and other tools that you're using around the shop. Do you need this much compressor? Probably not for a one-man shop, but I kind of took it as a buy once, cry once. I've wanted this kind of compressor for years so that I could have a conversation when you're standing next to it. So I could film while the compressor is running and not have all this just racket in the background. So that's why I spent the money, and this is what I want. Now, I was kind of surprised when I got it and took all the cover boxes off and covers off, and it was all black because the ad shows it's red and black. Kind of what I figured out, and the reason I went ahead and bought this, and I'll tell you, I bought it at Tractor Supply, and I just ordered it in. They shipped it to the Tractor Supply. I went down and picked it up. A couple of things. One, it was the second to least expensive version I found. And I was willing to go anywhere from 5 horse up to this 7.5. Any more than that, and you really need 3-phase power. So the reason that kind of got me to jump off on this is it appears there are 2 companies making these smaller rotary compressors, calling that under 7.5 horse. The single phase is kind of hard to get a hold of because everybody wants to sell you a 3-phase. And if you look on eBay and other places, you can find all kinds of them in 3-phase. It's that single phase that I needed, and I didn't want to be trying to run a big giant VFD. I didn't want to be having to buy that extra to run that and on top of this. So this kind of does all of it in one shot, and that led me happy because I could buy a warranty on it. I could buy an extended warranty on it. You can buy an oil filters kit from Tractor Supply. They'll ship it into you. But again, the reason I went with this particular model was I'm pretty sure there's one company making them, I think, in Italy, and another company making them in China. This would be the Chinese version, but I think there's just the 2 companies making these of these sizes. I could be wrong. Somebody in the comments there can tell me I don't know what I'm talking about and give me all the links and I'll look them up some more. But this was the second to cheapest I could find. The other one was a little bit cheaper with a 5 horse motor and a little bit smaller tank. So I went this direction. The other cool thing is when you buy a Tractor Supply, depending on the time of year, what sales they've got going on, I got free shipping. I was able to get like $250 back in store credit in like $15 or $20 coupons. And they let me spend them all at once when I went in there for some other stuff. So basically I got quite a bit more knocked off the price when you kind of add all the things in. I'm pretty excited with it. It's assembled in the US, but I'm pretty sure most of these components came out of China. Again, what doesn't pretty much anymore. But I'm just happy with what I got. We're gonna get it hooked up and see all the features. It's got an auto drain on the tank that uses its own power, 110 power. Otherwise, I believe everything just hooks up through the 220 through this controller box. So one of the features I don't think I've mentioned before that I did for this compressor in the electrical system, showed you that box in the utility room that gets power from the breaker box. Well, just outside the utility room, there's a box in the wall, and it has a big contactor in it, much like your refrigerated air conditioning system would have. And that turns that 100 amps on and off with a light switch by the door. And my intent there is that when I'm leaving for a week, a month, or whatever, I can turn that off and not worry about this thing running, because the way these rotary screw compressors work is they run all the time. And you can set time frames in them, like, hey, I'm not gonna be out here after, before 7 a.m. and I'm not gonna be out here after 11 p.m. So don't run in the middle of the night. All kinds of things you can program into it. I hope that doesn't disrupt the electronics. If we do it once or twice and it's messing things up, then maybe I have to reconsider on how that's gonna be used. But that's my intent, is to be able to just shut it off and on when I leave the shop for the week. Turn it on when I come in on Monday, and when I leave on Friday kind of thing, I'll turn it off, and then it's not running over the weekend, or you get it whatever time period. Well, that's the quick overview. I'm kind of pretty excited. So we're gonna get this picked back up. There's forklift openings in the actual unit. So I'm gonna get this picked back up with the forks, get the pallet unhooked from the bottom, and then we're gonna try and sneak it back there into the utility room. I gotta do a little cleaning up in there where I was drilling holes and stuff. I bought a rubber mat to go on the floor to sit under this because I have the in-floor heat, and it's really, the lines all accumulate under the concrete in that room where this is going, so I can't really drill down into the concrete to try and bolt it down. So I'm just gonna put a big heavy rubber mat. It's kind of like a horse stall mat, if you guys are familiar. It's about a 5/8 or 3/4 inch thick rubber mat that's gonna go on the floor. And then I got this silicone mat to go on top of that. It's just there to catch any oil or anything that leaks out of this. It's got some turn up sides, and really that's for a washer and dryer unit. So it's probably gonna pinch the heck out of the silicone, but it should give me some kind of sides to, if we ever had a problem, or if when I'm changing the oil, I don't make a big mess all over the concrete. I gotta be pretty careful. I don't want to get into the electrical control box that's on the front. I really don't want the fork sticking all the way out the back, because I need to push this up fairly close to the wall. We've got a pre-cooler or after cooler on the back, and that we got to leave a little bit of air room there so that it can get air circulated. But for now, I just need to get this pallet down off here. So as you can see, this fills up this room pretty well. Originally, I had thought I was going to turn the compressor long ways over here, but then this wall where the door is would have to be like 2 or 3 more feet out in here, and it was just going to pop out just for this one room. And I decided I'd rather have the space in here where my toolboxes are going to be, and it'd be a little snug in here. I've got plenty of room to hook everything up. I've got plenty of room to get around here and service it. And I've got plenty of room, I believe, on this end to get my boiler in here for the in-floor heat, and a little hot water heater for that bathroom. I mean, 3 to 5 gallons is all I'm going to put for all of there. So the power's got to come off here and into this box. I got to get the air out of there and into my manifold. Hopefully you can see this. So this is that 3/4 inch horse stall mat that I bought. And then this is the little silicone mat that just is there with the lip to catch water or oil that comes out of it, so I don't have a big mess, hopefully. This thing's pretty heavy. I mean, I can bump it around a little bit, really it's too heavy to try and manhandle, more than an inch or something. I could have used the forklift, picked it up and put it on some rolling wheel dollies, but still once I got in here to the mats, it was going to be a challenge. I just barely had enough room, and this is a 6-foot door, so I had to take the doors off to make enough room to get it in here. So it's the next afternoon. I ran over to the hardware store and picked up some fittings that I needed to connect the compressor to my filter system, and has also got some SO cable to can go from the on-off box on the wall into the compressor controller. And I powered the whole thing up. We had one fault. I called the 800 number. They helped me right away. It was just a loose connector inside the cabinet here, and that was probably from shipping. So anyway, that all works now. Compressor starts up and runs. It's a little louder than I had hoped, but it's still much quieter than my old piston version. Pressurized the whole system and opened all the vents and let everything flow for a little bit. Shut it all off. The compressor's holding about 140, 139 PSI. I guess there's a Airline that comes off, probably the regulator or something under there, and you can hear it just hissing just a little bit. So I also shut off the valve at the bottom of the tank here where the air goes into the dryer, and kind of separated it. So this is draining down just a little bit. It's about 1 PSI every few minutes. And I'm basically going to put it like a 12-hour check, 24-hour check, something on my whole plumbing system. I've got it pressured up to about 121, 122 PSI. Took a picture of the gauge there. And then we're just going to come back tomorrow morning, tomorrow midday, whatever, when we're out here. We'll see what the pressure is on the gauge for the whole system, and just kind of watch and see what this is. I'm not going to shut it off tonight, but I do have it turned off. I hit the off button on here. So it's just going to sit, and we'll see how much this drains down from the 139 it's at right now. And we'll see how much the whole system drains down. I can't hear any air leaking. Kind of been around all the T's and the fittings, and sounds good. So I'd be shocked if I didn't have at least one leak, but so far so good. All right, so the next thing I think we're going to try and do is get this heater hung from the ceiling. Now, this is an item that I bought going on 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half ago, with the intent of using it in the other shop in New Mexico. Once we found out, I probably hadn't been home with it for a week when I found out we were going to be selling the shop and moving. So it has literally sat on these set of pallets and wrapped up in this saran wrap from when I hauled it back. It's used. It came from a shop out of Montrose, Colorado. So I think I have everything, some chains, some anchors, some U-bolts, whatever. I think I've got everything to hang it from the ceiling. So I'll probably have to take down one of the pieces of sheeting to cut my hole through for the vent, the exhaust vent, and then cut around it, put it back, all that. But that's one of the reasons we're using the material that we did up there, so that it was easy to take down and put back up as we needed to. That's probably a early fall kind of project, so that we can use this over the winter instead of using my kerosene Mr. heater, the big torpedo type thing. Oh, so this thing burns waste oil. It's a Clean Burn brand, Clean Burn 90, CB90. Not a huge unit. It's just supposed to be like that instant gratification. I need some heat. It's a super cold day kind of thing, because we do have radiant floor heat in here, and part of our next fall kind of setup is going to be getting a boiler and all that stuff in. We'll probably do some of it over the summer, but not in a big hurry. It's starting to warm up here now, so this is just more a project to get it up out of the way so that we can get the plasma table under here where this is gonna be instead of having it just sitting in the way for the next 6 months. All right, well, I got it mostly installed. I need to get another piece of unistrut about 4 feet long so that I can get this front corner. But I had it hanging by just the two off that one purlin or girt, whatever it's called. And it doesn't weigh a whole lot. Like, I picked it up there with the forklift, but then as I was adjusting stuff, I was just picking it up with the scissor lift from underneath and adjusting the heights and everything. I've got it pretty well level across that girt, and then, or purlin, whatever it is. And then I've got it mostly level this other direction where the empty hook is. Of course, I need that one more hook just so I can put tension on everything. Got to get a screw. It's just a sheet metal screw for this one slat. And then we've got, I've got most of the exhaust, but I need to get the stuff that goes on the outside of the building. And then we'll have to find some kind of tank to store the oil in, and we'll get that set over here, and then there's a pump that goes with it that feeds the oil up in there. But for now, it's out of the way, and it's where it's gonna live. Anyway, that's up. On to the next item. All right, it's been about 20 hours, so we're gonna check our compressor and the air in the Airlines and see how things have changed. So I'm gonna flip you around here. So as you can see on the air compressor, it's down to 58 PSI. If I remember right, it was like at 138 or 139. And this was at 121, I believe. And now it's at about 65. So they're both got a small leak. This one I know on the compressor here, this was letting some air out. And then whatever it hooks to inside the system, you could hear it letting some air out as well. And then I had to unplug the auto drain because it lets moisture out. It's just cycling every few minutes. It lets a bunch of noise out. Same with this, with the dryer. It lets out moisture through this line every few minutes if they're turned on and left on. So I had to turn all that stuff off just so we could get a stable kind of loss. But overall, I think it's pretty good. We'll probably find whatever air leak this is, we'll find that over time because they usually show up. But I'm gonna kick this thing back on. So we just hit the start. And I'm gonna open the valve down here. That's what lets air all the way out into the dryer and everywhere else. That on, and then plug in this now that's plugged in and you hear it pop. That's plugged or turned on and it'll run the dryer. The air compressor is coming up with 80 psi and climbing. I have this regulator right now set to that 120 psi, whereas this is going to come up close to 150. Here it's substantially quieter than when those doors are open. So it's another day. It's raining again, so I'm not outside doing yard work, and today we're getting to work on the shop a little bit. We're going to go ahead and get this lift installed. I think I mentioned in the last part of the video that I wanted to get the plasma table in here. I had to go to work, and then the days I've been here, it's been raining, so I've just been trying to piddle around, get other stuff done where I could. The one day it wasn't raining, I had to get some yard mowed. Consequently, I have not moved the plasma table yet. We're just gonna have to do that later. It's not that big a deal to move some of this stuff around. Everything's on wheels except this, and we should be able to drive through the middle of this if we need to. So anyway, we've got a K-Tool lift. I bought it on Amazon. I'll put a link in the description. As always, I'm an associate, so we make a little bit of money if you buy anything off of Amazon. Doesn't add anything to your price. I just give a little bit of a percentage. You can see the O is already kind of coming off, so I'm pretty sure these are just a rebranded version or generic lift that K-Tool puts their name on, other brands put their name on. I actually bought it, I'm looking it up right now, through Motool Technology was the brand, and it's an 11,000 pound lift. clear floor, so it has the bar up high, so that as you're raising things up, if the roof gets up close to it, it flips a safety switch and shuts the pump off. It's hydraulic. It came with the arms, jack pads, all the stuff that you would need to make it useful. Came with anchors. These are like 6-inch anchors, I believe. The concrete here where the lift can go, I have a spot in this bay and a spot in the bay kind of behind the camera that it could go in, and in both cases I made the concrete a little over 8 inches thick. So I bought some 8-inch anchors to go in there just to make myself feel a little better about the anchor depth. I'm sure the 6 would work, but I poured the extra concrete, let's use it. What else do we want to know? I've already taken boxes and stuff out of here because the day this came, it was raining, so I had to get it inside, kind of get it peeled apart, make sure all the pieces were here before I signed off on the bill of lading or whatever for the truck driver, so that he could get out of the way and on the road. And so, you know, I had to kind of break it down a little bit, but it's been sitting here just stuffed in a corner for a couple of months. In fact, I ordered it in January, and we're at the middle towards the end of April already. Like I said, we're gonna go ahead and get this installed instead of the plasma table, and we'll get it the first dry day we get. Really, it's not a big deal that the plasma table gets wet to bring it over here in the rain. I mean, I don't like riding around in the rain on the forklift, but the big thing is the Scout is in the way of the access to the plasma table with the forklift, so I'd have to push the Scout out into the rain to get to the plasma table, and I just don't want to do that. So that's just gonna have to wait for a dry day. We're due for one in a couple days here, so we'll see. In the meantime, we're gonna mark out the floor where this needs to go, get it stood up, and just kind of go over what we think. So I'm gonna do a separate video on the lift itself, kind of like I did last time for the 4-post lift, and just discuss the lift. You know, I bought it with my own money, so it's kind of a buyer beware kind of thing sometimes, but I will go over all of that in that other video. In this video, it's just gonna be me getting it set up as part of finishing out the shop. So check out the other video if you wanna see my thoughts on it, and otherwise we'll just keep moving with getting this shop fitted out. So I've kind of crudely mapped out where the thickened areas are on the floor, and in hindsight, I wish I probably had made them a little bit bigger. My goal is to kind of put the lift as far that direction as I can, which is towards the back of the building, and as close to the balcony as I can. So we're gonna be kind of in this corner, and I made the pads big enough that I could kind of shift them around based on, you know, they didn't have to be dead center on the door or anything like that. Ideally, you would probably line it up with that door so you could drive straight through, but I kind of want to offset it so they get a little more shop area on that side and just enough of a walkway on this side that you're not running into it or whatever, and you have room between it and the post. Things I have to think about is like, how are you going to access the upstairs with a forklift? And that's mostly in front of the lift. You could access it a little bit on the back side, but have to be careful of the garage door rails, the arms that the door rides on. So you got to be kind of careful of that. You don't want to get up there and start damaging that. So really, I'm going to make my gate would be over here, closer to the motorcycle, and that's kind of how I'd planned it anyway. So we're going to lift as far as we can that direction, and as far as we can towards the back of the shop. And we'll get our distance, set one post, make sure before we drill any holes, we'll make sure the other post is going to fit in the pad where we want it. I'm going to square it up as best I can to the back wall of the shop, rather than having it at some odd angle. I see some of them where they'll put them kind of more towards the middle of 2 bays, kind of split 2 bays, and then they'll put them at an angle so you can come in one door and kind of get into it. I'm not totally against that, but the way I tend to use the shop, if I get this over here, I could have 2 more cars side by side in the next bay if that was something I wanted to do. Whereas if I start putting it in the middle, now you're trying to split everything on each side, and this is primarily going to be for doing maintenance, oil changes and body off and whatever else. Whereas the other side of the shop, kind of behind the camera there, is going to be mostly for metalworking, and I eventually would like to get a big curtain that crosses over this, kind of separate this a little bit to keep the grinding dust and all the other stuff from being over on whatever's going on this side of the shop. Won't be a completely contaminant-free kind of thing, but that curtain could help with the dirt and the filth. So anyway, there's the plan. Next thing is to get the instructions out and see how far apart the two legs have to be, two columns, and then we'll figure out where we can set this first column and still be on the pad on the other side. As you see, I got this post set and square to the back wall of the shop, the side wall. It's pretty easy because we cut these saw cuts in the concrete before the building ever went up, so everything was measured on 10-foot squares. So I verified all my measurements a second time after I took the tape back off from showing you guys how it was going to look, to be able to just measure everything off of this saw cut line here, and then this saw cut line here sets that side and this side. Now it's off center for the door because like I was talking about earlier, I want a little more space on that side of the building, and take up as much of this going towards the balcony as I can, because I just need a little bit of a walkway there, maybe 3 feet's plenty. So that one's in the ground, squared up and plumb. So I'll get this one all squared up to the same saw cut line and off this same line here. I've got to get the distance correct, which is like 3,540 millimeters outside to outside. Get this post lined up, and then I'll start drilling the holes for this. They're taking about 10 to 12 minutes per hole. I bought a fresh bit. I have an old bit as well, but I bought a longer one that was fresh. But it's a lot of concrete, and the concrete's been here for, I think, over 6 months now. So we're drilling into some pretty hardened concrete. Plus I used 4,000 or 4,500 PSI concrete. I can't remember now. It was either 4,000 or 4,500 PSI concrete. So I wanted a very hard concrete to begin with for the strength, because I want to be able to run, a heavy piece of equipment in here if I need to. So it's been a couple days since I started putting up the 2-post lift. I basically got it stood up and the overhead connecting bar put in place and started drilling holes for the second column. The instructions are terrible, so it's taking me time trying to decipher what it is. Kind of thinking, like, if you hadn't put one of these up before, I'm not really sure it would be something you could do based off these instructions. Maybe they're a little more intuitive than I'm feeling they are, but I've installed a lift with the floor plate before. I've helped install one with the overhead rail where the cables and the hoses and everything will go before, and I really feel like if I hadn't done that, I would not have a clue how this was supposed to go together, at least not from the instructions. The thing that's helped the most is the picture on the front of the instructions, because I can get a kind of an idea of what's supposed to happen. But I was really starting to worry about the spacing on the floor between the two columns, because it wasn't making sense really. They give you two different numbers, and while I'm pretty sure the larger number is the outside to outside of the floor plate, the smaller number, I cannot find anything that lines up with that. So I just went ahead and put the overhead support in, tied that into the top of the second post, and then came back, measured everything, and it's very, very close to the outside to outside dimension they give you for the biggest dimension. So then I went ahead and started anchoring that post down, column, and that's as far as I've gotten, because the weather turned somewhat nice, and I needed to get this car out of storage so that I could get the car that's behind the camera out of storage. Let me show you that one. So yeah, I had to get the Firebird out of storage so that I could get this out of storage, so that I could get my other 4-post lift out of storage, which is now on a trailer sitting right outside the shop. So I need to move a few things out of the way so I can push the Firebird back as far as possible and try and back my trailer inside the shop and unload that 4-post lift, get it into place, then put the Firebird on it. The Firebird's going to go on top and all the way up, and then this is going to go underneath it, hopefully. Haven't ever tried that arrangement, so that's the plan, because I would like to get this to where I could start working on it again. And I want to work on the Volvo this year, and I need to finish the Scout. And the things I do know is my son doesn't have anywhere to store the Firebird, so working on it anytime soon is not really important or a necessity, but I do need to store it safely, so I need to get it on the lift, put a cover over it, and raise it as far up there as I possibly can, so that this will hopefully fit underneath. So that's what we're going to do for the next couple hours. Well, if you were ever wondering if you could haul one of these fully assembled on a flatbed trailer, the answer is yes, kinda. The legs do not fit on my trailer, and I've got an 18-foot trailer that's as wide as you can go at the fenders. If the bed was wider, you probably could get it all up on there. Although I don't know how you would physically get it raised up on there without like a forklift at both locations. So the solution I've found is I raise the bed part, the part you park on, fairly high up, put a strap between the posts, especially on the front ones, to kind of pinch them in, and that kicks the bottoms out wide enough that my fenders will go between the two posts. It's tight, but it does just fit. Then once I get the whole thing straddling the trailer, I lower it all back down, and the bed lays down on the bed of the trailer, or I have some blocks on there just so it clears the side rails. And then you have to get a jack underneath the feet, which means you use a strap to kind of ratchet it up part way, get a jack underneath the foot of each post, jack it up till it's high enough off the ground, and then you use straps and tie them off. So you've got to basically undo all of that to get the post back down on the ground, then use the hydraulics to raise the bed up, drive the trailer out from under it. Then once I have the trailer out of the way, I can put the wheels that come with the lift on it, lower it back down, get my dollies out from under it, and I should, in theory, then be able to just wheel it back in here underneath the balcony where it's gonna live. I gotta clear some of that space out, but that's just the way this is gonna go. So it's a slow process, but as you can see, I got the trailer out from under it. Ended up putting a dolly under that end. I couldn't find another dolly strong enough. I broke one of the ones I had. So I just ended up using a floor jack over here so that as I got, like the tires rub it on the way through, but the license plate and the tail lights stick out just slightly more. So you can kind of slide the lift left and right and move it around just a little bit while you're trying to get the trailer through. And then I've put the wheel kit back on it, so the back ones are coming down now. And the front ones, because they're on jacks, it's going to take a little bit lower. Then it should all kind of sit down to where we can move this stuff out of the way and the stuff that's in the room back there out of the way. So yeah, this is going to be the front because that's where the handle is. So this end will go in first, and we'll just pivot it around there. So finally, like, it takes a while to get it all off the trailer and not get anybody injured or anything like that, but it's working. So I got to get all this stuff out of the way, forklift out of the way, so that this can go in, and the intent is to go as far back that way as we can, leaving room to get to and from the breaker box and being over that direction as much as we can. Because I would like to put probably a set of shelves on this wall that's adjacent to the staircase. And I'm thinking maybe shelves like where I can store car batteries and have battery chargers and that kind of stuff on that wall. I'm not positive that's going to work, but you know, based on the size of this, I think it might. So anyway. Not particularly fun to do it by yourself, but I got the car in there. Just had to use a floor jack to get it spun around so I could back it on. And then I just used a cable hand winch to ratchet it back up on there. So that's done, got the tires blocked. We're gonna flip the ramps around, slide them under the front tires. And I think there's a couple parts for the lift in my truck, just wheel stops. But I got it back far enough that it'll easily clear the front, and it's got plenty of room behind it, so kind of worked out pretty much the way I hoped. I thought about trying to get a little closer to the wall over there, or even putting it in at a little bit of an angle, and just kind of decided against it. I can keep stuff along this side of the wall, even with another car under there, so it'll work out. But I've got plenty of room down this other wall now that I can do the shelving that I was talking about for. I don't know if I'm gonna put my shelves there for the car batteries and chargers and all that, or if I'm gonna put like my DeWalt batteries down through there. Haven't really decided yet, but that's definitely something I wanna do along that wall and take up that space. It's not quite enough space to park the forklift in. At least I don't think it is. I'll probably check that before I make that other decision, because if I could park the forklift in there, then that just kind of makes things really easy. I need to check, I might be able to put the scissor lift in there. Almost certainly could do that. And then that could stay there until I get ready to sell it. So we've got a few options. We'll see what we come up with. Well, as you can see, I got the lift all installed. It's bolted down, the hydraulics work. And it's been kind of a pain. I think I mentioned earlier the instructions are terrible. What little bit of instruction is there is so haphazardly put together, it's all but useless. The most valuable thing in the instructions is the picture on the front cover to kind of give you an idea of where everything should be. Beyond that, they are all but useless. There's nothing I could find in the instructions about the safety bar up here other than it should be installed. Again, the picture is not good enough to even really help you figure out how to install it, but it kind of made sense once I really sat down and looked at the parts I had. There you have it. That's the heaviest vehicle I own, and that's probably in the 8,000 pound range, maybe a little more than that with the flatbed and everything else on it. So it will lift 8,000. It's supposed to be an 11,000. You know, who knows? And the safety works. I was running the button there, and I was just watching it. As soon as that switch moved, it cut off. So I know all that works. And to tell you the truth, this is the very first time this truck has ever been on a lift that I've owned. And I actually bought it at a Chevy dealer off their used lot. So it went back there one time for an oil change, and then I went to the Dodge dealer one time for an oil change and a recall that they had to do. And that's it. It's never been back to a dealer other than those 2 times. And all the other oil changes I've done, it's just as easy to scoot under it with my little cart. I never put it on a lift, never needed to. I'm not going to leave it up there because I'm about to go to work and I don't necessarily want to trust that, but it seems like you saw me shaking it when it was about a foot off the ground. Nothing's creaking or making noise. So normally when I have a vehicle on the lift for any length of time, I also put a jack stand under the front and the back just to stabilize it, and not really to take any weight off, but just to keep it from rocking around. So thanks for watching. We're going to keep moving along on stock in the shop. Let me show you around just briefly what all I've got. Back here where the plasma table is going to go, in this area somewhere. So this is the box that has the computer and all that in it. I have some scaffolding that was around it before. I got the last hook on the heater up there, so that's done. I got this viewing you've seen. I've got pretty much all my tools roughly where I want them along the wall here. And so it's starting to come together. So for now, that's all the major stuff in place. And I just got to start bringing all my other items, all the stuff to fit out the shop, all my tools and just the boxes and boxes of extra parts and everything else I have stored away, start getting those in here and put away. But we've pretty much got all the big stuff placed. I appreciate you watching, staying along for the whole shop series. I hope you found some or all of this interesting and come up with some ideas on how to do your own shop, or you already have a shop on the property and you're just trying to refit it or organize it better. Maybe some of this will help you out. The last thing I was going to show you, I did buy this tool rack this last week, and so all my power tools, all my battery power tools are going to hang there close to where I'm doing most of my work. And I thought that was a pretty nice little setup for about $55 or so. So a link on Amazon for that as well. Got some shelving just to put on both sides over here. So in this one I'll be keeping like oil filters and oil and antifreeze, stuff that I use right here in this bay. That's it for the shop kind of fit out, other than I just got to put all my crap away, dig it out of all the different places I've hidden it. But all the tools are basically in here now and stored away in roughly the locations they're going to stay. I'll probably do some final tweaking. I do have to get the plasma table down here, but that's just going up and picking up with a forklift and setting it in place and then running the cables and the power and everything to it. And now, how do you get that tubing straightener sent to you? In the comments, what I want is you tell me what type of shop you have, or if you're building a new shop, how big your new shop is going to be. Just tell me something about your shop, or maybe it's your dream shop. Maybe you're working out of a one-car garage, but you have a dream shop that you would love to build or rent or buy sometime in your future. Tell me something about your shop or your dream shop, and tell me how big it would be if you had your choice. They're never big enough, so make up your own number. And then out of all those comments, I'm gonna print them out, little strip of paper, I'm gonna put them in a hat, shuffle them up, I'm just gonna draw one out. So simple as that. Whoever that is, I'll send you a message back through YouTube asking you to letting you know you won, and then asking you to send me your address, and I will get that thing shipped out to you. And I may throw a couple other goodies in there just so you have them. So look in the description below for links on Amazon for the different things. Don't buy this one, buy something else. Not that you can't buy it from Amazon, just don't buy this particular brand. But I'll put a link in there so you know which one not to buy. And that's it, guys. Thanks again. We'll see you soon. God bless.